Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Selfish Woman. You are in for a treat today. We are here with Cara Alwill. I'm just going to read a little bit about Cara. Cara is a New York City based creative entrepreneur who encourages women to live their most effervescent lives, celebrate themselves every day, and make their happiness a priority. She is a best-selling personal development author, mentor to women entrepreneurs, and creator of the Champagne Diet blog. Over 8 million listeners worldwide tune into Cara's podcast, Style Your Mind, each week for powerful conversations and a mega dose of inspiration. Cara is also the author of 9 best-selling books, including the worldwide sensation Girl Code, that have inspired women around the world to step into their power and fulfill their potential. Cara's books have been translated into languages like Russian, Chinese, Portuguese, Mongolian, and Vietnamese. Her message continues to transcend cultures and break barriers for women across the globe. Holy crap. Welcome, Cara.
That's like a little self-esteem boost. Thanks, Val. I was like, wow, I've done a lot of shit.
If only we all had that every morning, like someone to just read all our,
Well, it's so funny. I tell my clients, like when they're feeling down, I'm like, go read your bio and remember who you are, because we don't go through our accomplishments often enough. We don't think about everything that we've created in our lives. We look at everything that we have left to do. But I think it's just such a great exercise. Like, who wouldn't want to just be like, oh my God, I'm pretty fucking cool.
I'm pretty amazing. And also like to sit with it and be okay with like hearing it and seeing it and speaking to yourself, like to start getting comfortable with, yeah, I'm a badass.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you don't believe it, who will, right?
Right. Okay. So I got to start with a little bit of my own experience of you, because feels like a very full circle moment for me. I've been obsessed with you for years. I've been following you on Instagram, the Champagne Diet, of course, and just so inspired by how creative and positive and inspiring you are. And then I hopped into your mastermind. I think it was like 2020, actually.
I think so. It was, it was during COVID.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2020 was that huge growth year for me. And, going into your mastermind, and we've talked about this, I was like struggling with insecurity and lacking direction. But one of the big takeaways for me was moving out of the should of what I thought I should be doing and really starting to lean into and give myself permission to do what felt right and what I was excited about. And that was such a shift for me. And then, of course, last year, I was like, I need to hire you one-on-one. So we did and worked together, which was just like being inside of this container of possibility and inspiration and encouragement. And one of the things that you really challenged me about was to start a podcast. So, I mean, here I am. This wouldn't be here without you.
So I remember seeing a podcast for you before I think you could see it. Like, I just knew you had so many amazing ideas and just this dream to write and put everything out there. And I was like, you need a podcast. And it took a little time for you to get comfortable with the idea, right? Like, it's whenever we're embarking on something new, I think we can't really see ourselves as that thing yet. That's why I think having a coach is so important, because we see your potential and then we help you see it. Mm-hmm. But I was like, she's going to be fantastic. Like, this has to happen. Everyone's going to tune in. You have such a great voice, and the way that you speak and tell stories, I think, is just so powerful. And like, who wouldn't want that?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you totally had the vision before me. And I was like, I don't think so. I'm not going to do that. No way. And, over time, I was like, all right, Cara, you have bought me, sold me. I'm on the wagon. Let's do it. So yeah, believing in that vision, having someone hold the space for your vision before you even believe it yourself is one of the keys to my own transformation. And like you said, having a coach who can do that, we all need that. If we're women who want to go for it, we need someone who can be like, yeah, you can totally do this. Let's explore that. Let's make it happen.
Truly, I think having a coach is one of the best investments anyone can make in themselves. It's like the biggest gift you can buy. It's better than any handbag. And I love my handbags. It really is you just level up in a way that you couldn't do on your own or with your friends. It's something special about it.
I know, which is why when I saw you were like, I have some one-on-one spots, I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, here's my money. And it really, truly did bring me to where I am now, which feels like so much more is possible. So yeah, I just, I love that. And I love that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
All right. So I thought we might do something fun today. I have my own copy of Girl Code right here in my hot little hands.
I love it.
And I've got all my little post-its here. And I thought we could just like go through some of these ideas and just like talk about it.
Yeah, I would love to.
So okay, I got to start with this first one because it's actually what we're talking about right now, which is create things you wish existed. So I'm going to just read a little quote of yours here. You say, one of the most frustrating things I see among women entrepreneurs is all the time and energy spent trying to replicate what appears to be successful. I see so many businesses that scream inauthenticity to me that follow cookie cutter molds because they believe they're following a roadmap to what works. They believe that if the roadmap is followed, then they will make money and be successful. Oh, how wrong they are. There is no roadmap. There is no guarantee. And by imitating someone else's work, you're simply wasting everyone's time, especially your own.
I was sassy in that book.
You're bringing it.
I was like, whoa, okay. But it's true. I mean, like, I can tell you from experience, I've been doing what I do for 14 years and I've been coaching for a decade. So just being around the block, having my own experiences with putting things out there and creating things, watching my clients do things and people in the space, you just know, like, when you're not operating from that space of like complete total vision of what you want to do, it's not going to work. It's going to break down at some point. It's not going to be sustainable, or it's not going to, it might make you some money, but it's not going to fulfill you in the way that your own creative, vision can. Like being an echo of someone else, it's just not the same thing. And I think when you really do, like, I just love the term create what you wish existed. Because when you really do have that very unique, specific dream, idea, concept, there's a reason that has come to you. I do believe that, like on a spiritual level. And have you read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert?
Totally. Love that book.
Yeah. That whole concept of creativity and how these ideas float around. Everyone listening, go read that book for sure. I really just think that idea is planted in you for a reason. And it's so much more fun to do something that is true to you than trying to spend so much energy copying another person.
Absolutely. And for me, like I said before, I was stuck in that place of like, I'm just going to do what I see other people doing because that seems to work for them. And yet I wasn't excited about it. And I was just kind of like churning out stuff that wasn't giving me the results I wanted. So yeah, feeling like inspired, what's exciting, and being more focused on that experience of excitement and creativity versus like the outcome or needing it to give me something changed a lot for me. And whether you're an entrepreneur or not, it resonates with everybody. And that's what I love about your writing too, is it's like, it resonates with every woman.
Yeah. And I think it goes for life too, right? Like, how many women go get married because they feel they're supposed to get married, or they have kids because you're supposed to have kids at a certain age, or they buy a home because they feel like they should buy something. We do things, we think there's this blueprint, and we spend our whole life following this bullshit blueprint that never really felt real to us, that was kind of sold to us by society or our parents or our religion or our friends or whatever at school. And then we wind up wondering, later on down the line, like, why are we so miserable? Why are we overweight? Why are we drinking too much? Why are we not sleeping enough? Why are we eating too much? Why are we in shitty relationships? Like, everything comes down to being true to yourself. And I think if you can master that, even in small ways, and you start to see the payoff and how good it feels to make your own decisions, to make empowered decisions, that's how you start to change your whole life.
Totally. I mean, as you're talking about that, I'm like, yeah, check, check, check. Like I did all of those things.
Me too.
It's like, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I guess I'll go do that, instead of really like, what do I really want to do? And I think for me, and I know a lot of women, like you said, we were raised with the rules. Like, this is what your life is supposed to look like. This is who you're supposed to be. And unlearning those rules is such a huge process.
Totally. And it takes a lot of courage, and there's a lot of risk involved. One of my favorite questions to ask women is, if nobody was going to judge you, what would you do? If nobody was going to judge you, what would you do? How would you spend your day? What would you plan for the future? Would you leave your marriage? Would you go on that trip? Would you move into that new home? Like, I think we spend so much time worrying about what people are going to say or think about us that we hold ourselves back from really doing the things that feel right.
That's such a great question. I'm thinking about it already for myself. It's like, yeah, there's always new levels to explore of like, what am I doing now that feels like that, of like, people judge me for whatever. It's like, yeah, constantly asking ourselves that to unlearn that conditioning. I love it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, the other thing I was realizing as I was looking through the book is I love your titles. Your
Oh, the
titles are,
chapter titles.
yeah, like your titles are gold. So instead of like quotes, I'm actually just want to like read out some of the titles because I feel like that's gonna open up. So here's a great one. They don't serve champagne at pity parties.
They don't. They serve like Bud Light or something. No offense to anyone that drinks Bud Light.
Jack and Coke.
Yeah. Yeah, I always try to like, I think with my writing, being in this space, this personal development world, I've read a lot, seen a lot, heard a lot. I try to make my work fun.
Mm.
I try to make it like something that someone's going to really enjoy reading. And that's kind of where I come up with my fun little titles, and it's true though. If you think about it, what that really means is the good stuff doesn't happen when you're sitting around feeling sorry for yourself, right? That
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we should bypass our feelings. We have to process our emotions, but how long are you staying there? How long are you going to let
Yeah.
yourself ruminate over the things that didn't work out for you before you pick yourself up and figure out the new plan?
Yeah. And one thing I do really love about you on Instagram is your realness about what you're going through, like the highs, the lows, you're always showing up real and yet also showing us your process of how you do pick yourself back up and keep going. And I think we need to see that more as women of like this isn't just a fake Instagram account where everything looks perfect and curated. It's a real person.
Yeah, it is. And I think that like being vulnerable is tricky, right? Because I'm careful not to share everything in like a minute to minute update when I'm having those moments because I don't want it to just become like a dumping ground for my, you know, emotional
Mhm.
breakdowns, right? I'm very mindful of the energy I bring to situations. But I do try to show the reality because I want to show you, like you said, how I got through it and what
Mhm.
worked for me, because maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it won't, but there's a chance it could. And I think if women committed to being a little bit more honest about the things that don't look so pretty all the time, I think we'd really be able to help each other because we're fucking amazing at getting through life. Like we are
Oh
so
yeah.
strong. We are built to like bear children. Like men could never. I'm sorry, they just could never. Like, and we run businesses and we work on ourselves and we help other people and we change the world in so many ways, big and small. So if we could just commit to being a little bit more honest about how we navigate that, I think we could really help each other because just because I got through something doesn't mean I'm better than anyone, right? It just means that I went through some shit sooner. And if I
Mhm.
could help you with that and tell you what worked for me, I could maybe save you from some pain. And then you could pass that on to the next woman. And I just think that would we just all be so much happier.
Exactly. I mean, I have that conversation with so many coaches of like, we did it the hard way. And now let me help you not have to do it the hard way or take the long road.
Totally, which is why I'm so obsessed with talking and writing about relationships now, because that's my truth and my lesson and season of life I'm walking through. And it's like, oh my gosh, if I could just like put all of this into a book and share with people like what not to do, how to walk away sooner, how not to stay in something that doesn't feel aligned. Like, so I think like when we share, like again, going back to authenticity, talk about what you know, like
Mhm.
share, like you're gaining wisdom every single day, whatever you're going through in life. So you can't be
Mhm.
afraid to put that out there because it really can help someone else and also heal you in the process.
Totally. Yeah. Your community has really been resonating with your relationship posts. And I love your Q&As you do on stories because it's like those questions that people write in are like so universal. And yet it can feel so lonely when we're in it.
It can feel so lonely because again, a lot of people don't want to talk about what it looks like when it's not working. They
Mhm.
don't want to share how it fell apart or why it fell apart. They don't want to look like they were hurt or rejected or abandoned or any of those things. We want to look perfect because that's what we're conditioned to look, especially on
Yep.
Instagram.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it's interesting because the common thread that I see with all the questions that I get is women looking for permission to do what they already know they want to do,
Right.
you
Yeah, of
know?
course.
Like, should I leave? Should I walk away? This guy's abusive. This guy did this. He doesn't want to commit. He cheated. Like, what should I do? You know what to do. If you're asking the question, you know what to do. You just want someone to tell you that that's the right choice, right? So I think my job is to help women get really clear on what they want and empowered enough to do it without having to have permission to do it.
I love that. I love that so much. So, what's one example from your own life of where you fell and you picked yourself back up and didn't sit in the pity party, but really found a new way through it that changed your life in some way?
Well, I got divorced in January of 2020, right before COVID hit.
Ouch.
Yeah. I was turning 40 that year. I turned 40 in April. And, I was with my husband for a long time and there was no drama. There was no like big moment. There was no fight. I just was not happy anymore. And we had grown apart as romantic partners. We were really just kind of like roommates. He's a great guy. I will never say a bad word about him. But I got to a point where I was like, well, I'm going to turn 40 this year. Like, do I want to stay in this marriage that's really just not working for me anymore? And the answer was no. So I asked him on January 1st, 2020, on New Year's Day. And we had a conversation. And then a few months later, the world turned upside down.
Mm.
And then I turned 40 alone in quarantine in an apartment. And, that year for me was so transformative. And if I could do it all over again, I would. I wouldn't change a thing because I know that it made me into the person that I am. And I will be honest, having my job saved me because I had to show up and be a light for other people the whole world was struggling. The collective energy was just horrible. I mean, people were dying. It was scary. There were so many unknowns. So that's why I always tell people, like, if you can help someone else, like, you will help yourself. Not that you should ignore what you're going through and distract yourself by focusing on others. But I think knowing that like people turn to me for help and guidance kind of made me get my shit together a little bit quicker because I couldn't sit around having a breakdown every day when I knew that people needed me to show up for them.
Yeah, I love that. Having a purpose outside of yourself, knowing that people are looking to you. Like you say, you're not bypassing your own experience, but it's a great way to start pulling yourself up out of that hole. And you were in New York too. So, I mean, that was like such a central place for
Oh my God.
your country.
It was horrible. I mean, like we were afraid to like walk into our elevator, like I was afraid to like even leave my home, and my mom is sick and, she has COPD. So she definitely couldn't get COVID. That would not have, she wouldn't have survived it. So, being really careful of that and trying to take care of her. I mean, literally wearing disposable gloves to like, I remember the first time I even went to the store, it was on Easter Sunday and, the city shut down in March. Hadn't even and I remember like saying to myself, like, just walk by. You don't have to go in. You see how you feel when you get there. And I went in and I was terrified. So like that trauma coupled with ending a marriage of 10 years, living alone for the first time ever in my adult life.
Wow.
It was a lot. It was a lot. Just that's like an understatement. And then supporting a whole roster of clients and a whole group of 500 members online and a podcast with millions of people but again, I'm so grateful for it because I had to figure it out. If I had a mindless kind of mind numbing day job that I could do with my eyes closed, I would have been completely self-focused and I would never have gotten through it as quickly as I did.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot. It's a perfect storm of events, really.
Yeah.
For you.
Again, yeah. And like I love the Steve Jobs quote where he says, you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can always connect them looking back. And I think for me, like now that I look back, I'm like, oh, this was all this had to happen. This had to push me out of my comfort zone. I was very comfortable when I was married. It was easy. He was my best friend, my business confidant. I told him everything. Life was very easy being married. He took care of a lot of things in the home, co-parented our dog, could travel when I wanted on my own, leave him home with the dog and everything. And it was a lot. Like, so getting out of that, I knew was going to force me to have my world completely like uprooted. But I don't think I understood like how hard it really was going to be with the pandemic and everything else.
Yeah. It's so easy to stay in those places of comfort because especially like you say, if there's no big thing that happens, there's no big drama, then to have the courage to say like, I'm going to disrupt my comfort zone because I believe there's more for me.
Yep. Yeah. And there's always a period. It's like when you're taking off on a plane and it's like a stormy day and that climb is always bumpy, right? Like when it's windy and the whole plane is like rattling. But then once you get above the clouds, you level out and it's smooth and you're at cruising altitude. So I think like to get above the clouds, you have to have that turbulence. Like there's no way that it's just going to be smooth. It's just, it's got to go through, you got to go through some stuff to get to that next level. So knowing that, and you can prepare as much as you think you can prepare, but I think it always kind of rattles you.
Sure.
bit,
yeah. You can get on the plane and be like, I'm okay. I'm okay. And then the turbulence happens. You're like, I'm not okay. I'm going to die. But
yeah, even though you know what it is, it's still scary.
You're not going to die because, the turbulence is the thing. But yeah, like you said, it's such a great analogy for growth and what's on the other side of those bumpy, scary places.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah.
that.
You got to hang on and trust.
Hang on. Okay. What's my next one here? My next chapter title, Be Your Own Sugar Daddy.
Yep.
I like this one. Talk to us about this.
Okay. So when I love nice things. I love luxury. That's like one of my core values. I just do. I love pretty things, not materialistic, but I mean, who doesn't love a gorgeous, hotel room, handbag,
Yeah.
pair of shoes? Like I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember the first relationship I was in my 20s. I was with a guy and he was very toxic and unhealthy. And he would buy me things as a way to control me.
Mm.
And that he bought me my first Chanel bag. And I remember like feeling like I owed him something because he bought me this bag. Like, and he would say all sorts of horrible things. He told me at one point he'd propose to me if I lost weight. Like it was
Oh God.
so horrible, so terrible. Um, so I remember like when I obviously got out of that relationship, and it's funny because then that relationship end was the catalyst for the champagne diet to be born. And
Oh,
I use the blog to put those stories and to talk about my transformation and chronicle everything. And then that turned into my life coaching practice and everything else, books and podcasts. But going through that, I remember saying to myself, like, I will never like let this happen again. Like I will always, and he wasn't rich or anything. That was his thing.
right.
We were in our 20s. I didn't have money for a Chanel bag, and
Right.
he did, and he bought it for me. And I remember just thinking like, I will never be in that dynamic again. I was raised by a single mom. She taught me, if you want something, you've got to work for it. She didn't have a lot of money at all. My dad was a deadbeat drug addict. He left the picture. So I was raised by this mom who struggled, and I knew I had to be able to support myself. So that chapter was really just born out of my experience of like quitting my day job after I had built up my side hustle into what it is
Right.
now. And then I was like, I'm going to buy myself this bag. Like, I'm going to like work my ass off and save up and go and have like redo my Chanel experience. And I
Mm.
bought myself my first bag, which I'm looking at right now, which is so beat up. It actually
Oh.
got burned by a candle at a bar because I like left it on the bar. It has like a burn mark on it, but I love it. It's like so special to me because I was able to give it to myself. And I think a lot of women stay in relationships because they are supported financially, or they look to a man to give them something. And I think there's just something so empowering about like a woman who can give herself anything she wants. And
Mhm.
it's not just a Chanel bag, it's coaching, it's a great home, it's a life for her and her kids, it's investing in her business, it's whatever that looks like for you, however that makes sense for you, but not depending on another person, man or woman, to give you anything. It's just like the most liberating feeling.
Yeah, yeah, crazy because I mean, I was there too. I was in a marriage with three little kids and I was a stay-at-home mom, and there was so much of that dynamic that kept me feeling like I didn't have options when it was a toxic relationship, and kept me way too long, like 10 years too long. And I talk to women all the time who feel the same way, like I don't have any choices, I don't have any options, he pays the bills, and it can feel like such a scary stuck place.
It really can. And I think we're just in such an incredible time now because you can literally build a business and run a business and grow a business from your phone. There's so
Yeah.
many options, right? There's like network marketing, there's teams you can join, there's like virtual assistant work you can do. You can take your own idea and blow it up. You can start a podcast, write a book. So I think you just need to have that vision and know that like maybe it won't happen for you tomorrow. Maybe you're not going to get out tomorrow. Maybe it's going to take 6 months or a year, but build that thing for yourself because there's just something so empowering about number one, being financially independent. And number two, getting to do it in a way that you love to do it. You don't
Mhm.
have to go work in an office and answer
Mhm.
phones, for 8 hours a day anymore. Like those times have changed completely. If you've got an
Totally.
Instagram account or a Facebook page, like you can launch a business.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, it doesn't have to look like it did. There are so many more options for women now. And yeah, the pride that comes from feeling like we are self-sufficient and able to support ourselves. Then you're not looking for a partner because you need that. You're looking for like, well, what are you bringing to the table? Because I don't need your money. It's like a totally different dynamic when we're looking for relationships.
It's interesting though, because I think men still feel the need to be the provider. Like I have met a lot of guys who have made comments like, I don't know if I could keep up with your lifestyle, or I can't afford you, or I can't afford to take
Mm.
you out. And I don't need that, and I've
Mhm.
been very clear about that in my dating life. Like, I don't need anything from you except someone who loves me, respects me, and makes me happy. right? And
Yep.
like how, like, we need to just change that conversation in like the male female dynamic, I think, because there is still this feeling, I think, among men, this pressure that they need to take care of us financially. And I think they
Yeah.
need to kind of feel off the hook. As long as you can pay your bills, I can pay mine, we're going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, let's get out of the patriarchy.
Yeah. Yeah. We're done.
We don't need your money. And, we want more than that now. And women are more than ever empowered to take care of themselves financially. And so, yeah, it's changing the face of relationships. And I think, men have some work to do to catch up.
Yeah, for sure. Could not agree more.
And for me too, like, again, I'm also living on my own for the first time, and walking into my apartment, if I've been out for the day, I walk into my apartment and it's all mine and I paid for it and I'm paying the rent and the bills. It's such a satisfying, prideful moment when you haven't done that before.
It is. And, my big thing lately has just been wanting inner peace. Like, I just want peace in my life. And I think when you have your own and you support yourself, you don't have to stay in a relationship that doesn't work for you anymore. You can walk away and you can, like you said, come home to your home and your peace and your home, not just your physical home, but the home inside yourself where you feel
Yeah.
safe and you feel happy and you feel like I don't need to stay in anything that doesn't serve
Mhm.
me. Like, I will be okay no matter what.
Yeah. Oh, it's like priceless. Okay, next one. Stop being such a bitch to yourself. I love these. Every time I flip through your book, I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. So how are we being bitches to ourselves?
Oh God, I think self-talk is such a huge part of our lives and our psyche. And I think we tend to go towards the negative all the time, right? I think that we tend to talk down to ourselves like subconsciously. We don't even realize it. Like the way we get dressed. I mean, how many times have you called yourself fat because you couldn't fit into a pair of pants or something? Or,
Mhm.
oh, I gained so much weight, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm not good enough, I'm an imposter. The way we speak to ourselves is so powerful. I mean, there's tons and tons of research that shows that. So I think if we can start to master our self-talk, we can really change things. There is this exercise, and this is like an exercise that I have, done with my clients, given to my clients. And this again comes to relate down to relationships, but you can relate this even to like your child, like someone that you really love. Write a letter to the love of your life, whoever that is, and write out all these things that you feel about them, right? Like whether it's past love of your life, present, like I said, child, things like, I'm in awe of you. You're my dream. Like, you make me feel so safe. I love you. You're so perfect. And then turn around and say all those things to yourself.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the most powerful exercises we can do. And it really makes you realize, like, when is the last time you said any of those things to yourself?
Mhm.
And if you could
Yeah.
start incorporating just a few of those practices and those words and those sentences, I think that like you would really, shift. And I think it really does change things.
Yeah, it's like coming back to what we said at the beginning about reading your bio to yourself and starting to get used to praising ourselves is so uncomfortable when you've never been modeled that. I love that exercise because it's like so easy to say to someone we love.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not easy to say to ourselves, what is that revealing? And let's start changing that dynamic and purposefully speaking that to ourselves. Because we have that inner bitch who's always like, they don't take a break. It's
No,
always
and sometimes it's an outer bitch, right? Sometimes it's someone in our life who is threatened by us and who feels, like our confidence makes them uncomfortable in some ways. I know I've had a lot of people in my life like that, in passing, not people that I'm close to, but people I've met, I've come across where they feel like, well, who does she think she is for being
Mm,
confident in herself? And that's not my problem. Like, if you're uncomfortable with my confidence, like, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. But
mhm.
it's hard, right? It takes a long time to get there. I've been practicing and teaching personal development now for like, a decade and a half. It's taken me a while. But I think that's why sharing these little exercises and surrounding yourself with women who feel the way we feel, listening to this podcast, reading one of my books, like actively seeking out people who normalize, feeling good about yourself, who
Yeah.
normalize like celebrating your success as opposed to, downplaying it. That's so
Yeah.
important.
Yes. Who are we listening to? Who are those voices that are in our ears? And that made me think of something that so many women talk to me about, which is, going back to being vulnerable, more authentic, especially online. A lot of women are like, I don't want the haters, or I'm so scared of what people will think of me, and it keeps them small, it keeps them from being visible. You've had your fair share, I'm sure, of haters online because you're very visible. So, what would you say to those women who are feeling terrified to show up and show their truth and their real self?
I think when it comes to haters, I just immediately block them and delete the comment. Like, I don't even spend any time defending myself or reading into it. Like, I might just be taken aback. I still am sometimes. I don't get it that often, believe it or not. But when I do, I'm like, what? Like, this is just,
Mm.
you don't even know me, And I think we have to be really careful not to make somebody else's perception of us become our reality.
Mm.
So be, true to who you are, like know who you are at the core. I think that's where it really the work begins, is really getting to know yourself and not just love yourself, because I think that's like a very kind of people that have never really explored self-love, like they're like, what? Like, I don't even know how.
Yeah.
Do you even like yourself?
Mm.
That's where I think we need to begin. Like, do you like the way you show up in the world? Do you like the choices you make? Do you like the way you make other people feel? Do you like the way you speak, the way you work, the way you dress? Like, so we need to kind of start focusing on that first. And I think when you really do like yourself and then eventually love yourself and really kind of have this whole little world, like I call it my little champagne bubble that I'm in, because I really love myself and I know I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. I have made mistakes. I have fucked up. I have said the wrong thing, but like we all have. And that's part of life. And I think we need to give ourselves a little bit more grace and not beat ourselves up all the time. And then when you develop that core sense of self and that core confidence, the people on the outside, it's like a joke, Like when I
Mhm.
look at some of the people that make comments, like they're usually fake accounts, number one. You can
Mhm.
always tell that
Mhm.
on social media. Or if it's somebody on Amazon who's leaving me a weird book review, I'm like, okay, this person, like, this is not me. Like, I know that none of those things are saying are about me are actually true. So why am I even going to spend a second giving this any energy? Because the more
Right.
that we focus on, right, that energy that expands. And then you're going to spend waste a whole entire day. What if it's the last day of your life? You don't know that. You're going to spend that whole day obsessing over a stranger on the internet. I mean, that's just crazy.
Exactly. We need to hear that more because yeah, it's the energy we give to it that really gives it the power.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these
Love
people
it.
are powerless at the end of the day. It's a face behind a phone, like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
They don't have the guts to even like put their profile out there or have a picture.
No.
Makes me think of what Brene Brown says of like, if you're not in the arena, you don't
Mhm.
get to have an opinion. If you're just sitting on the sidelines, you
Yep.
don't get to have an opinion.
Nope. Not at all. I mean, I think like every single person who says something crazy on social media, they always have a private account.
Yeah,
There's like two posts, like it's so obvious. So
I know.
can't give it any weight.
No, totally. Okay, last one. Don't wait for an invitation. And the subheading I like is you better work.
You have to go for what you want. And I say this all the time to my clients, to myself over and over again. If you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. If you do
Mhm.
not put yourself out there, if you don't put your name in the ring, like if you don't ask for something, most people are so busy and so caught up in what they're doing that they're not thinking about you. Like, I tell people like follow up on your emails, not every day. Give people a chance, but like
Mhm.
follow up, like make yourself be known, be present. Ask for if you have a dream or something that you want to do, ask someone, like, can you help me do this? Or do you know someone who can help me do this? I think we're so used to, and again, this is like a total patriarchal thing. We're so used to waiting to be picked and chosen. I mean, that goes back to like
Mm.
ancient times when we were like
Mhm.
chosen by a man and picked out of a family to go marry someone and
Mhm.
reproduce, right? Like there's a lot of that that's still so deeply ingrained in our DNA that we have to like get out of that mindset. And it doesn't mean that you're, being forceful or you're assuming being presumptuous that you're the person to, that is going to make something happen, but like you do have a lot of power. And again, if you don't ask, like how do people even know that you want that thing? So why not? Like what's the worst case scenario? They say no, move on.
Love it. Yeah, the whole I need to be picked or I'm waiting to be rescued and like all the Disney movies, right? Waiting to be rescued. Like it's so ingrained as in women that we need to wait for someone to come and save us instead of like saving our own damn selves and going out there and asking for what we want. I just did that yesterday. I asked someone a scary thing as like for a contact, an opportunity, and the answer was no. And I was like, cool, I didn't die. But if I'd never asked, I wouldn't know. So like it's just getting used to being like, yeah, I got to show up for myself.
Exactly. And I often think that sometimes that rejection we get is actually a redirection to something better. And there's a
Mm.
reason why it's no. Maybe it's no, not right now, or the timing's not right. Or, I can't tell you how many people in the beginning of my career told me no, or just flat out ignored me. And then those same people came back to me and wanted things from me and invited me to their party or their thing. And I'm like, that's interesting. Like, now you're coming back. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you.
So yeah, definitely ask. And again, there's like a way to do it where I think you can, not feel like you're nagging someone or you're out of, you're kind of out of line. There's a
Yeah.
way to do it. So just think about the way that you approach people. I think if you can offer, especially if it's early in your career and you're asking for a favor, like what can you offer back to that person? I always say that, like, how can I support you? Thank you for doing this for me. What can I do for you? So it feels
Right.
mutual.
Right. Yeah. And then do the work. You're a great proponent of working on your own behalf, showing up for yourself, and really putting all of your heart and soul into what you do. And it shows. And I think that's also something that's been really inspiring to me is like take my work seriously and show up and put the work in.
Exactly. And if somebody says no to you, do it on your own terms. I mean, that was my story. I got rejected by 19 publishers and then I just started my own self-publishing empire and I'm writing my 10th book now, like I'm not waiting around for people. And by the way, the publishers did come back. So that,
Yep.
my story. So
Yep.
they always come back. It's just like men, right? They always come back with a story. But a lot of those times we've moved on already. So
Yeah, you've moved on. It's like, oh, had your chance, missed
yep.
it.
Yeah, totally.
Amazing. Okay, so I have actually two last questions for you. The first one is if you could go back in time and tell your little girl self one thing, what would you say to her?
I would tell her she is worthy.
Mm,
That
mhm.
was something I struggled with my whole life, single parent, dad left, like quintessential daddy issues,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
all that stuff. And it took me a long time and it still comes up, the worthiness thing. So I would for sure tell her she's worthy. And I've done a lot of the inner child healing. It's so powerful. I think
Mhm.
everybody should do it because it
Mhm.
really sheds so much light, right, on like where our issues are rooted and how we can overcome them.
Totally. I love that. And then how are you being selfish these days? How are you putting yourself first?
Boundaries, boundaries, and more boundaries. I
Ah,
am the
yes.
boundary queen. Oh my gosh. Like, and not just creating them. This is the thing that I always say, creating a boundary is an act of self-respect, right?
Mhm.
And maintaining that boundary is an act of self-love, right? Like
Mm.
really true, like you respect yourself enough to set the boundary, but then you really have to like really truly love yourself in order to keep that boundary up when somebody tries to cross it. Because
Mhm.
it's so easy to just let our guard down and be like, okay, fine, I'll go against this thing now, or I'll let this person get away with that, or because we don't want to be lonely or whatever our story is, right? We're afraid of
Mhm.
reactions, hurting people. But keeping those boundaries, maintaining them, being able to express them to someone and not feel guilt and shame around it, that's huge.
It's life work. Like it's so transformative. And like you said, the maintaining, the enforcing of the boundary is the really like that's where the rubber meets the road because
That's the work.
it's easy to set a boundary, but then if we just keep moving our line back and back and back and giving in, then we're right back where we started.
I think a boundary doesn't make you bitch. Like a lot of people feel like, oh, am I going to be cold or bitchy? No, it makes you a queen. It makes you a self-respecting queen. There's
Yes.
difference, right? Like between just like, saying no to everyone or having these hard rules about your life. But when you get really clear on like, what are your values? Like what's like for me, like a big boundary is like how I'm spoken to
Mhm.
by people, like especially in relationships. Like if you're not going to like speak to me with respect, like you're not going to have access to me anymore.
Mhm.
That's just
Mhm.
never, it's not okay.
Queen energy.
Yep. Big
Totally.
queen energy. We need to
Big queen.
rebrand big dick energy with big queen energy.
I was talking with someone the other day about this, and he was like, "How about big vag energy?" And I was like, I don't know if that's really appealing. Maybe big ovaries.
Yeah. Just, I don't know.
Let's go with big queen.
Yeah, big queen energy, BQE.
That's great. We've just come up with a new brand.
Podcast
Okay.
launches next week.
Yeah. Okay. So where can all of our listeners find you? How can they get in your world, Cara?
Okay, so I am on Instagram all the time at the Champagne Diet. That's my name over there. My podcast is called Style Your Mind, and all of my books are on Amazon. If you just look up my name, Cara Alwill, you can find everything.
Yeah, you're easy to find because you're everywhere.
Working on it.
Oh my God. This was such a fun and really empowering conversation. I'm really glad to have spent this time with you. And I know our listeners are going to just love it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so happy that you invited me on, and thank you to everybody for listening.
Thanks, Cara. Okay. Thanks everybody for being here, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.